Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take your detailed research, your scattered notes, and your stack of sources, and transform them into a comprehensive, digestible body of knowledge.
And today, we are really focusing our lens on a region that's just, well, absolutely central to understanding modern India.
We are talking about Karnataka.
That's right. Our mission today is to go beyond the surface, beyond just Bengaluru, which is what everyone knows.
Right, the Silicon Valley.
Exactly. We are tackling the entire state of Karnataka, a place that's this amazing convergence point of millennia of history, deep cultural roots, diverse languages, and most critically, its phenomenal economic and technological dominance today.
Okay, so let's unpack that.
Yeah.
Because when the world talks about India's future, whether it's in tech or aerospace or biotech, Karnataka is always, and I mean always, at the center of that conversation.
There it is.
But to really get why it succeeded, we have to zoom out and look at the foundation. So give us that geographical and political snapshot to start.
Okay, so geographically, Karnataka has this uniquely advantageous position in southwestern India.
It's huge.
It's expansive, yeah. It's the sixth largest state by area, covering over 191,000 square kilometers. It faces the Lakshadweep Sea on the west, but here's the key thing. Look at its land borders. It is the only southern state that shares a border with all four of its immediate southern neighbors.
So that's Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and Telangana.
All four, plus Maharashtra and Goa to the north. So this central position has made it just a crucial hub for trade and also for conquest for thousands of years.
And its modern political identity, that's a more recent thing, a product of consolidation.
Precisely. It was formed on November 1st, 1956.
Initially as Mysore state.
Exactly, as Mysore state bringing together all those scattered Kannada-speaking regions. It wasn't officially renamed Karnataka until 1973.
And population-wise?
Demographically, we're talking about the eighth largest state. The 2011 census put it at over 61 million people, and that number has grown substantially since then.
Okay, and here's where we get to the real headline for modern Karnataka. Its economic power. If you had to give us one single number that just encapsulates its importance, what would it be?
It would have to be the sheer projection of its wealth. Karnataka is, without a doubt, the Silicon Valley of India, and it ranks third nationally in total GDP.
And the number itself.
We're looking at a gross state domestic product, or GSDP, projected to be around $361.19 billion for this fiscal year.
361 billion.
Yeah. And just to put that in context for you, that single state's economy is comparable in size to some, mid-sized European nations.
And the growth trajectory is just phenomenal.
It really is. Its GSDP growth rate for the last fiscal year, 2023-24, was a very robust 10.2%.
Wow.
But what's really insightful here is that while, yes, Bengaluru Urban District is the core, that economic strength is spreading out.
So it's not just a one-city story.
Not at all. Coastal districts like Dakshina Kannada and inland cities like Hubli Dharwad and Belagavi, they're all rapidly becoming major contributors to state revenue. It shows a much more diversified, multi-city economic engine.
And that economic engine, it rests on these really deep geographical and historical foundations. Let's dig into that with Section 1, Identity and Geography.
A great place to start.
So, starting with the name itself, Karnataka, what does that name actually tell us about the land?
Well, the name Karnataka is inherently descriptive of its physical geography.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the generally accepted etymology, the origin, comes from the Kannada words Karu and Nadu.
Karu and Nadu.
Which translate pretty simply to elevated land.
That makes perfect sense given the topography. Most of it is on that big plateau.
Exactly. The vast majority of its landmass sits high up on the Deccan Plateau, so the name just fits perfectly.
But I understand there's another interpretation, one that's a bit more localized and talks about the soil.
There is, and it's a compelling alternative. It can also be derived from Karu, meaning black, and Nadu, meaning region.
The black region.
The black region. And this refers to the incredibly fertile black cotton soil, the regair, that you find all over the plains there, especially in the north. That area is called the Bialu Seam.
And the British had their own term for it, right?
But they did. They used the term Carnatic, or sometimes Carnatic, but they used it really broadly to describe, well, pretty much the entirety of peninsular India south of the Krishna River. It just shows how central this land was, even in their eyes.
That distinction you made between the plateau and the coast, it really sets up the three main geographical zones that define the state.
They are starkly different zones. You start in the west with this narrow coastal strip, It's a wet, tropical region known as Karavali and Tulunadu.
Facing the Lakshadweep Sea.
Right. And this area just gets hammered with rainfall, especially during the monsoon.
But if you step immediately inland from there, everything changes.
Completely. You transition into this hilly, densely forested region called Malanadu.
The Western Ghats.
That's right. This area is basically the majestic Western Ghats, this ancient mountain range that acts as the rain catcher for the whole peninsula. It's a globally recognized biodiversity hotspot. Just incredible flora and fauna.
And then the third zone is the big one, the massive plateau that holds most of the population.
That is the expansive and much drier Bylucine region.
Right.
This is the plains of the Deccan Plateau, and it makes up the bulk of the state's area.
And it's important to understand the climate there, right? It's not all uniform.
Not at all. In fact, the northern part of the Bylucine is actually characterized as the second largest arid or semi-arid region in all of India. So you have this incredible variety from a wet coast to dense hills to these dry plains, and that's the key to understanding the state's huge agricultural and cultural diversity.
Okay, so given that large arid region, the river systems must be, well, absolutely critical for everything.
They are the state's lifeblood, and you have two distinct major systems. The largest is the Krishna River and its main tributaries.
Like the Bhima and the Tungabhadra.
Exactly, the Bhima, Tungabhadra, Malaprabha, and they all flow generally eastward toward the Bay of Bengal.
And the second system.
That's the revered Kaveri River and its tributaries like the Hemavati and the Kabini. It also flows east.
But the geography of the Ghats, the mountains, forces some pretty powerful rivers to go in the complete opposite direction.
That's a key detail, and it's tied directly to all that rainfall in the Malanadu. Rivers like the Sharavati and the Netravati, they flow steeply westward, straight into the Lakshadweep Sea.
And these rivers are important for more than just irrigation.
Oh, much more. They are absolutely essential for generating hydroelectricity. A great example is the Sharavati River, which creates jog falls. At 253 meters, it's the second highest plunge waterfall in India, and it's been harnessed for massive power generation.
Okay, so let's move from the water to the ground underfoot. The geology there is incredibly ancient and complex.
It is, and that complexity really defines the state's resources. When you look at the geological makeup, you realize why the state was so critical for things like mining and construction for millennia.
What are the main types?
Geologists identify four main types of formations. The oldest is the Archean complex.
Okay.
This involves what's called Darwad schists and ancient granitic gneisses. This is the oldest, hardest rock foundation you can imagine.
Which explains why they could build those massive, durable temples.
That's exactly why. The stone was readily available.
And what about the other layers?
Well, you have the younger, but still deeply ancient, Proterozoic sedimentary formations like the Kalagi and Bhima series. Then you have the Deccan Trappean deposits.
Which are from volcanoes.
Right, from the massive volcanic eruptions that created the Deccan Plateau millions of years ago, which gave us that distinctive black cotton soil. And finally, you have the more recent alluvial deposits near the coasts and rivers.
So why should we, the listeners, care about Darwad schists and granitic gneisses? What's the real-world consequence of all this complexity?
The consequence is resource density and soil variety. This geological variety results in 11 distinct groups of soil orders across Karnataka. 11. Ranging from nutrient-rich red and lateritic soils to those black cotton soils that are vital for cash crops. And this diverse geological underpinning means Karnataka has significant mineral resources: gold, iron ore, manganese, which is why the region was sought after even by, the Harappans thousands of years ago.
That structural density brings us perfectly to Section 2. Deep roots in history. Because Karnataka's past isn't just a regional story, it's a story of cultural and administrative precedents for all of South India.
It really is.
So let's go way back to the deep past.
Okay, so the prehistory here is profound. We have evidence of the Paleolithic hand axe culture found all across the state, which indicates a very early human presence.
But there's this one connection that's a real aha moment.
There is. It connects us to the biggest civilization of ancient India. Scholars have hypothesized that the gold discovered at Harappa, which is thousands of kilometers north in the Indus Valley,
Right.
was actually imported from the ancient gold mines located in Karnataka.
Wow. From as
Right.
far back as 3,300 BCE.
Potentially. This establishes Karnataka as a resource powerhouse from the very dawn of organized Indian history.
So after the decline of the Indus Valley and the periods that followed, how did the first distinctly Kannada kingdoms start to emerge?
Well, the region was initially dominated by these massive political structures. First, you had the Mauryan Empire under Ashoka. His edicts are found here. And then 4 centuries of rule by the Satavahanas.
But the real turning point for a native identity came later.
The real watershed moment was the 4th century CE. As the Satavahanas weakened, 2 foundational native kingdoms emerged. The Kadambas, with their capital at Banavasi in the north, and the Western Ganges, based at Talakad in the south.
And this is where the administrative blueprint for the modern state really begins.
Exactly. These kingdoms were the first to officially document the use of Canada in administration.
And we have hard proof of this.
We do. It's evidenced by the incredibly important Halmidi inscription dated around 450 CE. Yes, found in Hassan district. It's the earliest known full-length inscription in the Kannada language, and it proves a continuous tradition of regional linguistic administration that is nearly 1,600 years old. This detail is so crucial when we talk about modern linguistic identity.
So following these native foundations, the region just exploded into the center for successive Imperial Canada empires.
The scale of ambition just increases dramatically from here. The Badami Chalukyas were succeeded by the powerful Rashtrakuta Empire, which, at its peak, controlled territory from the Gangetic Plains all the way down to the Kaveri.
Incredible reach.
And then came the Western Chalukya Empire. What's fascinating is the constant cultural patronage. The Western Chalukyas refined an architectural style that became the direct precursor to the later Hoysala art, with this emphasis on delicacy and detail.
And we can still see the physical evidence of this imperial patronage today.
Oh, absolutely. The UNESCO World Heritage Site at Paradakal showcases this transition perfectly. You have temples like the Mallikarjuna and Kashi Vishwanatha, built successively by Chalukya and Rashtrakuta monarchs. The sheer volume of patronage turned this region into a kind of historical artistic laboratory.
And the subsequent Hoysala Empire sounds like it was a true cultural golden age.
The Hoysala Empire, which flourished around the 11th to 14th centuries, was a peak of cultural production. Literature just blossomed. They developed distinctive Kannada literary meters, moving beyond classical poetry into more accessible forms.
And their temples are wide famous.
They are. Adhering to the Vizara style, they're known for these incredible star-shaped platforms and these intricate friezes depicting mythological stories. You could literally spend days studying the detail on the walls of the temples at Bilaru or Halebidu.
And all of this set the stage for the massive geopolitical power that was the Vijayanagara Empire.
Right. The Vijayanagara era, established in the early 14th century by the brothers Harihara and Bukaraya, defined the next 2 centuries of South Indian history.
Their capital, Vijayanagara, is modern Hampi.
That's right, strategically located on the Tungabhadra River. And the empire earned this nickname, the Bulwark.
The Bulwark.
Because its explicit political mission was to resist Muslim advances into the south. They controlled vast trade routes, especially for the crucial horse trade coming from the Middle East.
And what does the scale of Vijayanagara tell us about its importance?
Well, at its height, Hampi was one of the largest and wealthiest cities in the entire world. Visitors wrote about markets just overflowing with goods, massive infrastructure.
And its administrative system was key to its success.
Absolutely. The genius of Vijayanagara lay in its decentralized model. They relied on these powerful chieftains, or nayakas, to manage territories while maintaining overall loyalty to the central king. And this system was incredibly successful for 2 centuries.
And that decentralized model has a direct link, a surprising link, to the founding of the modern capital.
Yeah, it does. A man named Kempegowda I, who was a powerful chieftain under the Vijayanagara system, is the one who founded modern Bengaluru. In 1537, he constructed a fort and established the initial settlement, or Peat. So yes, the foundation of the global IT capital is directly tied to the administrative system of this massive ancient empire.
So the end of that empire in 1565 must have left a huge power vacuum.
It was a monumental collapse. It fell at the Battle of Telakota to a confederation of Islamic sultanates. And after 1565, the Bijapur Sultanate, one of the successor states, came to dominate the northern Deccan.
And they are known for their incredible Indo-Saracenic architecture.
Yes, exemplified by the Gul Gumbaz, which is famous for its massive dome and its whispering gallery.
And meanwhile, in the south, the Mysore kingdom was rising to prominence, which led to that dramatic confrontation with the British.
That's right. The Woodyard dynasty, which had been a Vijayanagara vassal, asserted its independence. And this kingdom eventually came under the control of Hyder Ali and, more famously, his son, Tipu Sultan.
A very famous and controversial figure.
One of the most controversial and formidable figures in Indian history. He was a military innovator who really challenged British dominance through four major conflicts, the Anglo-Mysore Wars.
And Tipu Sultan's resistance eventually failed, but his legacy really shaped the state's relationship with colonial rule.
His death in 1799 led to Mysore becoming a princely state under British paramountcy,
Hmm.
restored to the Wodeyars. However, and this is important, the spirit of resistance that Tipu exemplified was not extinguished.
Right, because localized rebellion started long before the 1857 Great Rebellion.
Decades before.
Yeah.
We have to remember figures like Kittur Chennamma, the Queen of Kittur. She was leading significant anti-British revolts and movements way back in the 1830s.
That detail really recontextualizes the whole narrative of British rule. It highlights this continuous, localized struggle.
Absolutely. And the final piece of this modern identity puzzle is unification. Post-independence, the Maharajas signed the accession. But the state boundaries we know today were achieved through the Ekikirana movement.
The unification movement.
Yes, this mass movement to consolidate all the scattered Kannada-speaking regions from Madras, Hyderabad, and Bombay states into a single unit, which was then formally renamed Karnataka in 1973.
And before we close this history section, we have to credit the modern industrial architect who laid the foundation for the tech hub we see today.
We have to. That would be Sarmakshagundam Visvesvaraya. Active from the early 1900s, his philosophy of planning and industrial development was just instrumental.
He was more than just an engineer.
Oh, much more. He wasn't just building dams and factories. He was instilling an ethos of state-led investment in modern infrastructure and education. And that directly prepared Mysore state to become the industrial base that would later house India's premier public sector undertakings and eventually attract the global IT industry. He built the ramp for the modern economic takeoff.
That historical depth from the ancient administrative tradition all the way to Visvesvaraya's industrial vision is what makes Section 3 economy and administration so compelling.
It really is.
So let's talk about the present reality, the Silicon Valley of India.
Well, Karnataka's leadership in information technology is just unparalleled, and it started way back in the 1980s. The concentration of talent and infrastructure there is staggering. The sources indicate that by 2007, nearly 2,000 IT firms were operating in the state.
And these aren't just small startups.
Not at all. It's the headquarters of behemoths like Infosys and Wipro, India's largest software companies.
And the numbers, they confirm the depth of this specialization.
They absolutely do. IT exports alone topped 500 billion rupees way back in 2006-07.
Wow.
Which represented nearly 38% of all Indian IT exports at the time.
And that dominance is sustained by really aggressive future planning.
That's the key. A prime example is the upcoming $22 billion BAL IT investment region near Devanahalli. It covers a massive 50 square kilometers, and it's designed to basically cement this global leadership for decades to come.
But the state wisely diversified its specialized science base beyond just software. It's also a huge player in life sciences.
It's the national leader in biotechnology. Karnataka hosts India's largest biocluster, accounting for something like 60% of the country's biotech firms.
And they have ambitious targets.
Very ambitious. The state government is aiming for a massive $50 billion bioeconomy by 2025. This dual expertise, in both digital and biological sciences, is a powerful accelerator for its economy.
And this modern private success is really built on that foundation of public sector manufacturing that Visvesvaraya helped establish.
That legacy is critical. Bengaluru is the manufacturing and research hub for India's largest public sector industries. Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, or HAL, the Indian Space Research Organization,
Yes, sir.
ISRO, which runs all of India's space missions, Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, BHEL, and several premier research institutes. The presence of ISRO in particular attracts the kind of high-end engineering talent that feeds the entire tech ecosystem.
I see that dual focus reflected even in their energy policy, specifically this massive pivot toward renewable power.
That pivot is central to their infrastructure strategy. Karnataka is investing heavily in utility-scale solar power, especially the massive Pavagada Solar Park.
How big are we talking?
By the end of 2017, the state had already installed 2.2 gigawatts of solar capacity, and plans were quickly announced to add another 1.2 gigawatts. This commitment positions the state as a major green energy producer, which is necessary to power all that high-tech manufacturing.
Okay, let's pivot to the financial sector. The sources show a surprising depth of banking history, especially in that coastal region.
The banking legacy is phenomenal. 7 of India's major commercial banks, including Canara Bank, Syndicate Bank, Vajra Bank, they all originated in Karnataka.
That's incredible.
And what's truly unique is the banking density in the coastal districts, Udupi and Dakshina, Canada. They boast the best distribution of banks in all of India,
Which is?
one branch for every 500 persons. This high penetration ensures capital access for entrepreneurs and farmers alike, and it's a quiet strength that really underpins the economy.
Okay, now, here's where we need to introduce a point of friction. We've established this global tech dominance, but nearly 56% of the state's workforce is still in agriculture.
Hmm.
Doesn't that massive dependency on farming pose a significant risk to this whole economic powerhouse narrative?
That is the single largest challenge the state faces, no question. While 64.6% of the state area is cultivated, the sheer dependence on the seasonal southwest monsoon is a major vulnerability.
Because not enough of it is irrigated.
Exactly. Only 26.5% of the sown area is properly irrigated. This means that climate shifts or poor monsoon seasons can dramatically impact the majority of the population, even while the IT sector thrives. It forces the administration to constantly balance high-tech investment with critical rural stability programs.
Before we move on, we have to mention two unique industrial facts that really anchor Karnataka's manufacturing identity on a national level.
Okay.
The silk and the flags.
Yes. First, silk. Karnataka is responsible for the majority of India's silk industry, centered largely in a place called Doddaballapura. And the second is this incredible piece of national trivia.
I love this one.
Karnataka contains the only village in the entire country that is authorized to produce the authentic Indian national flags.
In Hubli.
And Hubli, manufactured according to the extremely strict specifications laid out by the Bureau of Indian Standards. It's this powerful symbol of local industrial precision meeting national identity.
That's a fantastic nugget of knowledge. Now, the administration itself, how is this complex state governed?
It's organized into 4 revenue divisions, 31 districts, and 175 sub-districts, or taluks.
And the legislature.
It operates a bicameral state legislature, so it has both an assembly and a council, running on a parliamentary system led by the chief minister. The judicial system is anchored by the Karnataka High Court, with benches in Bengaluru, Hubli-Dharwad, and Kalaburagi.
And how is the state managing its finances overall?
Quite well, actually. Karnataka was ranked 10th in the Fiscal Health Index for 2025. And this economic strength is reflected in social outcomes.
Like poverty rates.
Exactly. The state boasts an exceptionally low multidimensional poverty rate, standing at 5.67%, which is substantially lower than the all-India national average of 11.28%. So the benefits of that economic engine are clearly reaching a significant portion of the population.
From administration, let's turn to Section 4. The linguistic and cultural tapestry. And this section is really the true heart of the state's identity, isn't it? Language was the core driver of its modern formation.
Absolutely. Canada, the official language, is spoken by 2/3 of the population. That's 66.5% as of the 2011 census.
And it's a classical language.
It's recognized as one of the 6 classical languages of India, and its linguistic demographics were the central non-negotiable factor in the unification and reorganization of the state back in 1956.
But the state's borders enclose this incredible linguistic diversity, making it a true cultural hub. What are the major minority languages that define the regional pockets?
Well, the linguistic map is very rich. Urdu is the second largest language, spoken by about 10.8%, mainly in urban centers and northern districts.
Okay.
Then you find significant pockets of Telugu, about 5.84%, especially near the Andhra Pradesh border and in Bengaluru because of migration. Tamil and Marathi also have a major presence near their respective state borders.
And the coast, as we established earlier, is its own distinct cultural entity.
The coastal Karnataka cluster is totally unique. It features Tulu, Konkani, and Malayalam.
Tulunadu.
Tulunadu, yeah, the cultural region where Tulu is dominant, is famed for its distinct traditions. Plus, you have these highly localized dialects like Arbasha, Biribasha, and Kodavatak, spoken in Kodagu district.
What's truly a fascinating fact about Karnataka's linguistic landscape is its link to the oldest classical language of all.
Yes, this is amazing. The sources point out that Karnataka contains some of the only villages in India where Sanskrit is primarily spoken in daily life.
Still spoken today.
In daily life. It's an incredible testament to the state's enduring tradition of classical learning, which has been maintained uninterrupted for centuries.
So let's connect that ancient linguistic base to the literary history. We spoke about the Halmidi inscription. Where does that tradition take us today?
Well, the Halmidi inscription from 450 CE marks the formal starting point. But there are references in a 9th century text, the Kaviraja Marga, that suggest a robust literature existed even before that.
And this tradition has maintained its strength right into the modern era.
Very much so. The real measure of this literary success is the fact that 8 Kannada writers have won the Jnanpith Award,
India's highest literary honor.
the highest. That is a phenomenal achievement for any single language community in India.
And the literary traditions of the minority languages also have significant depth.
They do. Tulu literature, for example, has ancient roots. The oldest surviving text is called the Tulu Mahabharata.
And it was written in its own script.
Importantly, yes, it was written in the Tigalari script, which is a sister script to the Malayalam script. Now, Tulu is mostly written using the Kannada script, but the existence of the older script in literature emphasizes the independent cultural heritage of Tulu Nadu.
Moving now to philosophy and religion, Karnataka has been this intellectual laboratory for Hinduism and for social reform.
A critical center for Hindu thought. Adi Shankara, the 8th century reformer who consolidated the Advaita Vedanta school, established the very first of his 4 major monasteries, or mathas, in Sringeri.
Making it a foundational seat of Hindu learning.
A foundational seat.
And later, the state housed the philosophical schools that debated and challenged Shankara's monism.
Precisely. The 13th century philosopher Madhvacharya was a key figure here. He was the chief proponent of the Dvaita, or dualistic school of Vedanta.
So while Advaita says the soul and God are ultimately one,
Vaidam insists they are eternally distinct. And Madhvacharya's influence drove the powerful Haridasa movement, the servants of Hari or Vishnu, who used accessible language, Dasa Sahitya, to spread their dualistic philosophy.
and that movement gave us the father of Carnatic music.
Indeed. Madhvacharya's most famous follower, Purandara Dasa, is universally recognized as the Pitamaha of Carnatic music. His compositions established the fundamental structure and the teaching methods of the entire tradition.
And we can't forget Ramanuja.
We can't. Ramanuja, the expounder of Vishishtadvaita, or qualified monism, spent many of his formative years in Melkote. So Karnataka was truly the crucible for the 3 major schools of Hindu philosophy.
But the philosophical school that sprang directly from the land as a social protest was Lingayatism. That requires a deeper look.
Lingayatism is perhaps the most revolutionary indigenous reform movement to come out of India. It emerged in the 12th century, mainly in northern Karnataka, and was led by figures like Basava, Akka Mahadevi, and Allama Prabhu.
And it was a protest against the caste system.
A direct and forceful protest against the entrenched rigidities of the caste system. It advocated for social equality, personalized worship, and meritocracy.
And how did they communicate these radical ideas?
Well, they bypassed Sanskrit and complex religious texts entirely. Instead, they used this simple, powerful, poetic prose known as Vachana Sahitya, literally sayings, written in the common person's Kannada. A democratization of spiritual knowledge. It was profound. And furthermore, they were radically progressive on gender issues, promoting gender equality and allowing women to wear the Ishtalinga, a personal symbol of God, around their necks, something that was usually reserved only for high-caste males. It's a remarkable legacy of internal social and spiritual reform.
And we see that philosophical and religious dynamism reflected in the arts.
The arts really showcase the state's position as a cultural bridge. Karnataka contributes significantly to both the northern Hindustani and the southern Carnatic classical music traditions.
Producing maestros like Bhimsen Joshi.
Bhimsen Joshi and Gangubai Hangal for Hindustani music.
Yeah.
There's also a local, highly specialized classical genre called Gamaka, which involves setting poetry to music.
And for visual and performing arts?
The dominant theatrical form is Yakshagana.
Ah.
It's this classical dance drama that comes from the coastal Tulunadu and Malnad regions. It involves these elaborate costumes, masks, and dramatic storytelling that runs late into the night. And then you have popular folk dance forms across the state like Viragase, Kamsal, and Dolu Kunika.
Finally, let's talk cuisine, which, like the language, reflects that geographical split between the high plains and the fertile south.
The geography absolutely dictates the diet. South Karnataka, the wetter, more fertile region, relies on rice and ragi, or finger millet, as its staple.
Often consumed as ragi mud.
That heavy, calorie-dense ball, exactly. But North Karnataka, in the drier Balusini plains, favors gelata roti, which is sorghum or jowar bread, as its primary staple. This is a fundamental culinary difference within the state.
And what are the dishes that have achieved national fame?
Oh, many classics originate here. The tangy bisi belly bath, the soft benedos, and of course the state's famous sweets Mysore pak and Darwood peta.
And Udupi cuisine.
Crucially, yes. The specialized vegetarian tradition known as Udupi cuisine, which comes from the coastal region and is associated with the Udupi Sri Krishna Matha, has become nationally popular for its unique preparation methods and its purity.
So we've built up the history and culture. Now we have to look at Section 5, infrastructure and education. This is the mechanism that converts those ancient foundations and modern ambition into economic reality.
Right. The nuts and bolts.
Let's start with connectivity.
Well, to run a $361 billion economy, your connectivity has to be top tier. Karnataka operates two international airports, the massive Kempegowda International Airport in Bengaluru and Mangalore International Airport, plus several regional hubs like Belgaum and Hubli, and they're constantly expanding.
Now, the rail network must have been a formidable engineering challenge, especially crossing those mountainous Western Ghats.
It was a huge undertaking. The total railway network is about 3,089 kilometers. Hubli is strategically important as the headquarters for the Southwestern Railway Zone.
And it also includes part of the Konkan Railway.
A major part of it, yes. The Konkan Railway is one of India's most complex post-independence railway projects because of the difficult, monsoon-prone terrain it has to traverse along the coast.
And sea access is vital for all its exports.
Absolutely. Karnataka benefits from 11 smaller ports, but the cornerstone is the New Mangalore port, which is established as the 9th major port in India.
And it handles a lot of traffic.
A lot. Over 32 million tons of cargo annually, supporting those massive IT and agricultural exports. And crucially, Mangalore is one of only 4 major Indian ports that receives a high volume of international cruise ships, so it acts as a key tourist entry point.
And tying all these logistical hubs together is the road network.
The road network is extensive. You're looking at nearly 4,000 kilometers of national highways and almost 10,000 kilometers of state highways. And the state-owned transport corporations, they employ about 25,000 people and move an incredible 2.2 million passengers every single day.
Wow.
The sheer scale of that daily movement just underlines the density and the interconnectedness of the population.
Okay, now, let's talk about education, the very engine of the Silicon Valley success story.
Education is clearly a priority, and you see that in the literacy rate of 75.60%. But more critically, Karnataka is home to India's highest concentration of premier institutions.
We're talking about the best of the best.
The best of the best. The Indian Institute of Science, IISc, which is consistently ranked among the top research universities in Asia. The Indian Institute of Management, Bengaluru, IMB Nimhans, the National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, and the IIT in Darwood. This critical mass of research excellence is what drives innovation.
And the government is heavily involved in ensuring widespread access to education.
Yes, the state government runs a vast public school system using the state syllabus, alongside private schools using central curricula like CBSE.
And they have programs to keep kids in school.
They do. To ensure equity and maximize attendance, the state runs a large-scale and very successful midday meal scheme, providing free lunch in government and aided schools. It demonstrates a clear administrative focus on human capital development.
Now, here's where we need to address a specific, sensitive event from 2022 that exposed some complex social dynamics within that educational environment.
Right. This specific event led to international headlines, and it really underscores the challenge of balancing tradition and secular education policy.
This was the hijab ban.
Yes. In 2022, some regional administration-backed schools imposed a ban on the wearing of the hijab in classrooms. This led to student protests and then counter-protests, where Hindu students, supported by various groups, began wearing saffron shawls.
Arguing that if one religious garment was permitted, others should be as well, or none at all.
Or none at all. That was the argument.
And what was the governmental response to the resulting conflict and the school closures?
Well, the state government intervened to manage the conflict and restore order. They advised colleges to enforce a uniform dress code, stating that clothes which disturb equality, integrity, and public law and order should not be worn.
So it was an attempt to maintain a secular classroom environment.
Yes. Our sources show this administrative response was an attempt to do just that while addressing the intense social polarization the event triggered. It demonstrates that the rapid economic progress coexists with these deeply complex social and cultural debates.
Now, let's move to a segment that is pure trivia gold, and here's where it gets really interesting. The media and communication history. There is a fascinating local story that became a national institution.
This is a truly remarkable anecdote. It speaks to Karnataka's pioneering spirit in technology and communication, decades before the IT boom.
Way back in 1935.
1935, long before independent India was even a thought. A professor named M.V. Gopalaswamy started Akashvani, which was India's first ever private radio station.
A private station run by a professor out of Mysore.
Right out of Mysore.
Yeah.
It's revolutionary, and this local private enterprise was so successful and popular that the local municipality eventually took it over, and then later it was nationalized and moved to Bengaluru.
But the most significant legacy is the name itself.
That's the amazing part. Later, in 1957, when All India Radio, or AIR, decided to adopt an evocative Indian name for the entire national broadcaster, they chose Akashvani,
A name that originated with that professor's small private station in Mysore.
the very same one. So the name that defined Indian radio for generations started right there in Karnataka.
That's an incredible local contribution to the national infrastructure.
And their legacy programs were phenomenal. One of their popular science education programs, Nisarga Sampada, was translated and broadcast in 18 different languages across the country. It just shows a strong focus on educational broadcasting that helped lift literacy and scientific knowledge for everyone.
Finally, let's wrap up with Section 6, focusing on the sheer beauty and the enormous scale of the natural wonders and tourism destinations that define the state's appeal.
Karnataka is a tourism powerhouse. It's consistently ranked among the top 4 most popular states in India for tourists.
And that's driven by both nature and history.
Equally by both, yes. Natural beauty and its incredibly rich architectural preservation.
Let's start with the nature side. We mentioned the Western Ghats are a biodiversity hotspot. What does that mean in practical terms for the state's wildlife?
It means it is absolutely vital for Indian megafauna. While the forest covers only around 16% of the state's area, which is still below the national policy target, these forests are incredibly dense and crucial.
And they support a huge percentage of India's elephants and tigers.
A huge percentage. Karnataka supports 25% of the entire Indian elephant population and 10% of India's tiger population. It's a key conservation center.
And the state symbols reflect this pride in its natural environment.
I absolutely do. The
Yeah.
state bird is the Indian roller, the state mammal is the Indian elephant, the state tree is the revered sandalwood, and the state flower is the lotus.
And this is all protected through national parks.
This commitment is protected through 5 major national parks, including Bandipur, Bannerghatta, Kudramukh, and Nagarhole, and the last 2 form part of the vast Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve.
Now let's talk about the cultural history that draws visitors. The sheer number of protected monuments here is just astounding.
It is. Karnataka holds the second highest number of nationally protected monuments in India,
Second only to Uttar Pradesh.
second only to UP. And on top of that, there are hundreds more protected by the state and potentially 25,000 more sites identified as historically significant. The volume of history is difficult to even grasp.
What are the absolute must-see UNESCO World Heritage Sites?
Well, you have to start with the ruins of the Vijayanagara Empire at Hampi. It's just an unparalleled display of ancient urban planning and monumental temple building.
And the other one?
The other is the group of monuments at Pelanakal, which perfectly encapsulates that transition of imperial architectural styles between the Chalukya and the Rashtrakuta empires.
And beyond UNESCO, the architectural marvels continue across distinct eras.
Indeed. You have the ancient cave temples at Badami and the rock-cut temples at Aihole, which are like laboratories of early Hindu architecture. Then you have the Hoysala temples at Beluru and Halebidu, with their hyper-detailed sculptural work, which are currently proposed UNESCO sites.
And then we shift to the massive scale of the Deccan Sultanate architecture.
Right, the Gol Gumbaz in Bijapur is a feat of engineering. It features the second largest pre-modern dome in the world, and it's renowned for its acoustic properties.
And in stark contrast to that massive scale,
You have the Jain architectural marvel at Shravanabelagola, the Gomateshwar Bahubali monolith. It stands 57 feet high, and it is the tallest sculpted monolith in the world, an extraordinary sight that attracts these massive pilgrimage festivals every 12 years.
and finally, what about the pure natural spectacle for general tourists?
The waterfalls are a huge Drajog Falls, Gokak Falls, Shivamsamudra Falls, and the state offers this superb coastline and beaches like Murudeshwara, which is known for its massive Shiva statue, and the popular beaches at Gokarna and Malpa.
And it's a hub for healthcare tourism as well.
The major center for it, yes. Due to its high concentration of medical research and health facilities, Karnataka has become a destination for specialized healthcare tourism.
That was an expansive look at Karnataka. We've covered a state defined by its diverse geography, The immense dynasties it birthed, from the native Kadambas who first institutionalized Canada to the bulwark of Vijayanagara, and its undeniable modern role as the global capital for IT, research, and biotechnology. All of it supported by that foundation of industrial genius laid by Visvesvaraya.
What stands out when you synthesize all this knowledge is the profound link between deep history and modern success.
Right.
Karnataka's economic leadership isn't accidental, it's a legacy. The early administrative stability, demonstrated by the use of Canada in governance by the 5th century, the political resilience shown by figures like Kittur Channama and the legacy of the Vijayanagara state, and the consistent investment in infrastructure and intellect. All of these things converge and contribute directly to the state's modern identity as the Silicon Valley and a leader in contemporary India.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
Well, this exploration gives you the crucial context needed to understand the resilience and the incredibly multifaceted identity of the people who call this state home. You can now see why a state that is deeply reliant on monsoon agriculture can simultaneously house a world-class institution like the Indian Institute of Science.
It's not a contradiction.
It's not a contradiction. It shows you that innovation doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's built upon deep, stable, and surprisingly ancient foundations.
So we discussed how the Hamidi inscription confirmed that Canada was used in administration as early as the 5th century, establishing this ancient, unbroken linguistic and administrative tradition central to Karnataka's identity. When you consider this long, deep linguistic history, a history that maintained its vitality even through periods of imperial upheaval, does the modern phenomenon of Canada literature being honored with 8 Janpith Awards suddenly seem less like an outlier achievement and more like an inevitable outcome of a durable, continuous cultural legacy? And what continuing influence does this long, unbroken chain of cultural production have on the state's leadership in science and technology today?
Something to think about long after this deep dive ends.
Indeed. Until next time.